Well, hello, Adam. How we doing today, my friend?
Doing good, Leighton. Not too bad, man. Staying busy, We're in the
Yes.
farm and just got a newborn too about 3 months ago and stuff. So he's been keeping my hands full and stuff. So it's
Are
great.
you getting any sleep?
Yeah, no, not at all, actually. So not since 3 months. So that's a whole nother thing. At first it was because of the farm, and now it's because of the newborn. And so it's like trying to just work balance. Balancing that whole life and all that stuff. So yeah, it's a lot, man. But it's sleep is for the week. We could do it when we dead. So whatever.
Yeah, right. We like to say that, but I don't know about you, but as I got older, if I lose sleep, I'm a mess. It takes a lot to keep my brain functioning the next day.
Yes. And that's the thing, like the brain functioning is like a huge part of the whole aspect, man. I'm literally just like end up catching myself, trying to make a cup of coffee like in the refrigerator or something like that, I'm like, oh God, like I gotta stay focused here.
First, you gotta warm the water up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so but it's all right. He's starting to get a lot better now. We're starting to get more nights where he's sleeping. We don't have to wake up as much, but he's still very infant, so it's a lot.
Yeah, I hear you on that. But, well, congratulations. I know.
Thank you.
It can be tough, but they're so special, and trust me when I tell you, the time flies before you know it. They're off on their own, and you don't get the hugs and all the goodies that you get when they're younger and children.
Yes. Yeah. No. Exactly. I already have one that just started in high school this year. So, and I just remember changing her diapers like it was yesterday. So yeah, definitely they grow real dang fast.
So how's things on the farm? Talk to me.
Yeah, absolutely. So we did our outdoor grow. We did about a half acre. What I was focusing on was like trying to learn how to use a weed barrier, because since I was working so well inside of our high tunnel rise system, I tried to also do it on the outside on our 1 acre grow. And it was working pretty well, as far as things go, but we still got weeds through the hole that we planted in and stuff. So that was a pretty crazy story there. But as far as with the high tunnel rise system, we have a really good growing system where we're using trichodermas and also bacillus. We have like we're doing two different types of bacillus. There's a bacillus, I'm going to probably butcher this, but it's a amyloidoquifation strain, and then there's a bacillus subtilis, and then those both like are great hard miners that like break down organic matter and make it good nitrogen source that's viable and able to absorb into the plant and everything too. So we were using that, and then also we have the two different type of trichodermas. We have a trichoderma haraziatum, and then a trichoderma longiatum. I believe it's right. That's the way you pronounce it. I'm probably butchering the pronunciations a little bit, but I usually just call trichoderma harazi and then trichoderma longi and stuff, and that kind of gets to the form of that. And all four of those type of microbiomes are super good at breaking down organic material, cleaning the soil. They also even are known to help with salinified soil, so salt, like soil with a little bit of salt in it. Which last time when we took a look at my report and stuff, I had a little bit of high salinity both in the water and in the soil itself. So I started to find some microbes that are actually really good at mining that stuff down a little bit, which is a pretty hard find, but it's been looked really good. I mean, I haven't had any sort of issues as far as having to use any sort of synthetic fertilizers. We've just been depending on our extract system of fermented plant extracts and stuff. Using like, tomatoes to grow tomatoes that way. We're using hemp to grow hemp too. So we have taken like the male plants, since we don't really do feminized seed. We've taken the male plants that grow in the field, chop them down, and then dice them up. And while they still had their pollen sacs on them, and we put them into a fermented plant extract. And what the pollen even adds to is it has a growth hormone, and everything to kind of give that seed what it needs to grow and stuff is inside that pollen. So now you have a whole bunch of pollen inside this fermented plant extract that's actually, contributing hormones and stuff to help the plant itself grow again. So that's a way of we adding nitrogen naturally to the plants too, as well as a bunch of other good stuff. So that's a picture of me chopping up one of the males. You can see all that kind of yellowish green stuff that's on there. Those are all the pollen sacs. Well, I call them just the hemp balls, you know, on a male plant. So they're all up in there. So we're trying to do some experiments with the males themselves like that. We did a great fermented plant extracts. I want to take it to a lab and get the numbers rolling in. But as far as what was seen to the eye of the other fermented plant extracts I've made, you develop like, you know, the colony on the top of it. You start seeing the lactic acid bacteria. You start seeing the yeast, and then don't really see the purple non-sulfur bacteria. That's something you're going to have to test for, but you see definitely the yeast and lactic acid bacteria. And you can usually tell how well it's doing by how active that's going. And it was just booming. Now, I got some more pictures on that too, which you'll probably pull up in a second here. But yeah, you can see that it's just like covering it, and all those pollen sacs floating to the top. The yeast and the lactic acid bacteria are like fermenting that. And when they ferment the pollen, it becomes it's not able to, like, you know, produce or anything like that. It won't fertilize your seeds or anything like that too. So you could use male extract plant or fermented plant extracts from the male plant on your feminized crop and not worry about it pollinating your stuff or anything like that, because they actually, when they ferment like that, they're not going to be able to do so, pollen or anything like that. Then we run it through a little like sifter, which is pretty much a paint strainer, and all the stuff will just go through there. And then it becomes this afterwards when he sits for a couple more days. You just get a brown liquid, and then it becomes this. And even after it's been sifted through that paint strainer, we still getting a plenty of activity from the microbes. You can see, you know, definitely a difference between the yeast and the lactic acid bacteria in there. And I mean, the smell that comes off of there is something else, man. You could almost smell like the terpene-ish kind of smell at first, but then it just kind of turns to like this like horse shit kind of smell. It's really bizarre, but it's not like it's like rot or anything, you know. It's just like super potent and stuff, and you're like, whoa, it smells like really grassy and like really full of nitrogen, the way like horse shit smells like, you know?
Yep.
So yeah, it's interesting, but I could tell it's all good because like when you do the fermented plant extracts, you get a nose for them, you know. So
yeah, absolutely. I love the pollen idea. That's something I've been telling a lot of the growers over the years, like, why are you throwing all this stuff away, man? Just ferment it.
Yes.
And as soon as you see that foam, you know you're golden.
Yes.
And I like the idea of the strainer, so it makes it easier to apply. And then what are you going to do with solids? Are you going to compost them? Or?
Yes. Yeah. So I have a pile of compost and stuff. I'm going to send you pictures, but I'm going to start working on putting together a John Sue here. Okay. I'm trying to do a composting class, you know, in my local community, and start kind of getting out and grabbing a bunch of like food scraps and things. I'm thinking about partnering up with like the school, as well as like local grocery stores and stuff, and getting all their wasted stuff that they can't even feed the animals, the stuff that's just like, you know, they're pretty much just throwing out, grabbing all that and then making a bokashi out of it, since I have the hemp kashi stuff going, you know, still. Yep. Being able to use that, and then kind of tying that in with the schools. And then I have a tree servicing person that actually drops off a whole bunch of his wood chips. So I have like yards of like wood chips that are stacked up. And so that's going to be my carbon source. So I'm planning on just layering them out, even with the fermented plant extracts, throwing that in there and stuff, and just laying it up, and then just building a good John Sue tower to be able to keep that stuff in, and hopefully multiples of them if everything goes right.
Yeah, that's the great thing about the Johnson Sue. It's hands off. Build it, let it go.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I want to be able to do. Just leave it.
Especially in your climate where it's so dry, it works really well. And that the liquids and the sludge from that food waste will really be beneficial to keep it going, because that was the other thing that, you know, he did when he originally Johnson did in the desert in New Mexico, was because that manure had so much liquid that it worked really well. And I know he's done some other work where he hasn't used just pure manure and chips. He's added in other ingredients. So, you know, it works. It's just a matter of, well, what are your resources, and then play with your formulas from there. So I love what you're doing. That's a fantastic idea. And, you know, there's nothing better than hands-on, getting people excited about it, and then saying, hey, look, you know, you come back here in spring, or maybe fall of the year or fall of 26, depending on how well it ferment or by a compost during the winter. You know, either way, you're going to have some material to bring home and put on your own garden.
Yes,
so,
exactly.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm going to try to do like some like garbage bins. And first, when I get the food and stuff, like I'm planning on hitting up the school and seeing what their food schedule is like, and then see if they have one that they like a lunch that they're going to do that's going to be mostly like vegetables, because we want as much like vegetables in there as possible. Even though you can ferment meat and stuff like that with the EM and everything that we make the bokashi out of. We still kind of want to try to focus in on much natural stuff that could break down like vegetables. So if they're doing like a salad or something like that, maybe we'll start kind of focusing on getting that, layering it up. I'll stand there, kind of help to empty the trays, throwing in the hemp kashi, bokashi, kind of mixed with the hemp char and all that stuff in there, and just layering it up into a trash can, and then taking that trash can, switching it out. And then I'll kind of let that stuff break down, collect the juices in the bottom, probably just give that away, or potentially if people want to come and pick it up, that's what I'd rather just give it away than try to sell it, that first just get people out there. So then they start seeing it, using it, and then realize that it's working. And I'll be able to kind of give that out, use it also on my farm a little bit. And then once that ferments, then I'll take that out and then layer it up with the Jansu, with the wood chips, and then the, bokashi and stuff, and just layer that up and try to fill up the whole tube that way, and then leave that again, for at least 6 months and stuff. And then start on another one to do the same thing again, hit up with the school on a good lunchtime and stuff, and just repeat and repeat, rinse and repeat.
Oh, there you go. There you go. So are you planning on leaving the container there and coming back the following lunch or week or day?
I'm planning on hauling it off. I have a trailer. I'm trying to, that's the biggest thing I was thinking about. I'm like, that's going to get pretty full. And then that's going to be a lot of material there to be able to try to pull up even into the trailer. But I think I can manage. I might just have one of my buddies, come with me. So then once it's full, we could get it over there. It would be like a garbage can with the wheels on it. I'm going to kind of slightly modify it a little bit and then put like a platform inside there, because inside there's like wheel wells that I could kind of work off of. And then like the wheel, I'll put something on top of there, and then something in like the other far corner to kind of make sure that the platform is level, and then have like a bunch of holes in that. So then the liquids would be able to go through there. Probably put like a little bit of like newspaper or something without like ink, maybe even like just like some brown paper I get from like Amazon orders, down at the bottom of that. And then throw some of the hemp kashi in there. It's kind of start a colony. And then when people start dumping stuff in, we just start layering it up, and then it'll still soak through that paper, and then trap at the bottom there and be like kind of like a little paper filter and stuff. And then I'll be able to tap that. I'll probably put a drill a hole, put a little tap on there. That shouldn't be too hard to do or anything, even before I put that thing in there. So then you have like this kind of chamber there about the same width as like what the wheels are at. So probably be good, a few gallons or so, but we'll see kind of how it goes like that, and we'll adjust accordingly based off of, that model and all that. But yeah, I got some ideas. It's just a matter of getting it going.
Yeah, that sounds really, really good. And the one suggestion I was going to make to you is if you have places that you can't get to on a regular schedule, just tell them to throw the stuff in the freezer. Everybody's got a freezer or a refrigerator, either or. It's just going to prevent it from rotting and breaking down and starting to smell.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, that's okay. That's good. I'll add that in, because they're just like, throw in the freezer. That'd be perfect. It'll just put the microbes to sleep, and they'll still wake up once it gets warm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it just prevents you from handling, stinky stuff if you can't get there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
I love the idea of the paper on the bottom to soak it up. I think that's a great idea. And a little pepcock to drain those liquids off. No, I think you're definitely on the right path. I mean,
cool.
And even if you, just did the collection and then brought it back and then did the layering in the actual Johnson Sioux, either or is gonna work really well. So I think you're onto something, dude.
Cool. Yeah, I just wanted to try to have it so then I could kind of show the concept to the people as well, and then have like something like a tap for them, so then they could try that bokashi that way too. And then hopefully that would kind of help to kind of drive more like local sales towards like selling people hemp kashi too. And then as well as like the hemp char, have that kind of a mixture in there. And then also I got some like bokashi buckets I got too, and I did some like little cool logos on those too. So I'm planning on selling those more locally rather than like having to ship them out, because the cost for shipping something that's big like that, it's going to be way too much. But I want to start also teaching people how to make your own. So even if you don't want to buy it, you could definitely just, try to make your own out of the 5-gallon buckets and all that. And then just start doing that more, because I'm surprised how many people around here really do not know anything about, bokashi in general. and the EM even, and like anything that when they hear anaerobic, they're just like, oh no, stay away. I'm not using any of that. I do nothing but aerobic, and they're like literally scared of it. But it's like, well, this is a natural source of nitrogen, which is like a big deal that your plants are going to need, and it's plant ready, plant available. It's like, I don't know if they really even understand what that means when they instead they just kind of just go over to the store and buy some of that Miracle Grow stuff or Scott's whatever and just try to grow their plants with that. And it's like, man, what are y'all doing? But so I'm trying to liberate my local community as much as possible and share also what I have to offer and all that and see what happens.
Another trick to the whole anaerobic aerobics conversation is to say use the word ferment and say, this is a method that's thousands of years old that came over from Asia. They were the ones that really created this because they didn't have the resources that they needed to, generate good quality output from their crops. So it's nothing to be scared of. And then you start talking about like, sauerkraut and some of the other fermented foods that are super healthy for you. It kind of gets them away from anaerobic stinky, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Because not all anaerobics are stinky. It's just low oxygen is the issue. So yeah, another good one is finally a company by the name of Biomakers, and it has a program called B Crop 2.0, and it's an opportunity for guys like you and me to send off soil samples or liquid samples and have a DNA extraction done, and it's only $200, dude.
Okay, what was the company name again? I'm sorry.
That's all right. It's called Biome, so BIOME Markers, MARKER, and the program is called B Crop, so that's a capital B dash crop, and I think it's 2.0, although it might not show that it's 2.0 version.
Okay.
But needless to say, when you get the report back, what's great about it is if it's a plant sample, like or a soil sample with a plant, you tell them what plant it is. They plug that into their what's called pipeline, and it comes back with the information of what kind of secondary and tertiary metabolites are being expressed by the bacteria. So, this has got antifungal, or watch out, this fungus is present, or you don't have enough production to prevent this type of fungus in your plant. So super helpful. But one of the reasons I brought them up was because they're the first company ever that starts to use CNPK. Everybody knows NPK, right? And I've been saying it's for years. Like it's not about NPK. It's about carbon, because if you have nitrogen and you don't have carbon in the soil, your bacteria can't break that fucking nitrogen down and make it plant available. So you're wasting your end. You're wasting your money. And nobody has carbon in their soil because everybody tills and kills, right?
Yeah.
So, that's a really great to see that a company of that size and, what do I want to call them? Horsepower is actually really starting to make it known that C is more valuable than N as far as, plant production, plant growth, and plant health.
Cool. Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to start. I'm going to send them a sample of it. I have still, some of that fermented plant extract from the hemp plant from the male one. I'd love to send that in and just see if I could get a whole DNA aspect and the whole a readout of it, let them know and see what I could do. I love that. I'll look that up and stuff. Definitely. I appreciate you mentioning that.
Yeah. And listen, hit me up if you're not getting response. I have a wonderful sales rep that I've been working with, and I've been passing her name around to other people like you.
Okay.
Because she's such a great contact. She has such great customer support. Like I got pretty hard questions. I'm not like an easy guy to say, oh yeah, that works fine. So when I need something, I reach out to her. She's always responsive. Within 24 hours, she's right back at me. And if she can't answer the question, she's like, all right, hold on. Let me get a hold of the lab support or the tech support. and she gets right back to me. So, that kind of customer service is, man, it's missing in today's world. And so
Yes.
when you see it, it's something that I compliment her on, as well as try to, get her more business or support my crew, my people.
Okay, I'll hit you up when I go over there, or I just mention you, or like, well, how is the best way to do it? If I do it.
So, I mean, I would say if you go into if you get into what's called info at, request Tanel. Let me see if I've got her last name.
Okay, and then I'll let Tanel know.
Yeah, it's Tanel, so it's TAN.
I'm sure there's only one Tanel working there. Right. It's not really like that common of a name.
And her last name is Liepner. So Tanny, TANIELL, and then Lipner, LIEPNER.
Lipner. Okay, gotcha.
All right.
Yeah. Cool.
And then just tell her Leighton sent me, right?
Cool.
And she'll know that I referred her.
Awesome. Good. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I'm definitely going to do that because I was wondering, I'm like, where am I going to get this tested? I was thinking about the same places that I get my plants tested, but I feel like they just kind of more focus on cannabinoids and stuff, which would be still a cool test to do. But I know they're going to be such in the micro layers that like they're going to have like a very hard like type of system to be able to read these things because most of their stuff would probably say LOQ, but there's still like traces of them inside there somewhere. But so I was like, I'm not going to do the cannabinoid thing, but I don't know if they were really even having any sort of like, fertilizer, readings or anything like that, or do any of that type of stuff. So that's great. If these people do that, then that's awesome. I'd love to get a panel tested out and stuff so I could see what's running on these numbers. Cause I don't think no one's really doing that with like males, like you're saying, you tell people about that, but they're like, no, like, I don't want to really do anything like that. But we're an R&D field out here. We're on small acres. Like what we get off on is being able to do these type of studies and, allow males to show up. And we have different ways of removing seeds, even if the bud gets like, contaminated with the seeds. There's different types of things you can still do that with us being a hempstead, which we like to call ourselves. Be able to use those seeds around the farm from like sprouting them and feeding them to our chickens, eating them ourselves and sprouting them, like there's health inside those seeds. There's so much omega-3s, 6s, 9s. There's, a bunch of proteins inside of there, like it's a sustainable grain source that's in there. That's inside those seeds. Like that's what it's mainly grown for when it's actual like hemp that grows really tall was for those seeds and like that type of grain that's growing out of there. So I think we're really missing a huge spot of the spoke when we're taking out that whole concept of the seed. We're just only focusing on one thing. And when things starts getting industrialized, that's when the biggest problems that really cripple a farm is that we only have that one source of income. We're only growing for that seed. We're only growing for that cannabinoid. We're only growing for that one thing. But what if there was a way that we could actually mix it all together and include everything, from the fibers and all that stuff that the plant has to it, different types of wheels of income off of the plant. And like, if we are able to grab all of them, like, yeah, you're going to be better off having a higher percentage of CBD if you don't get seeded. Of course, your percent yield decreases, but you might have to do a couple more, batches or washes or whatever in order to make up for that. But you also get another product on the line over here, which is that seed that you could use and have different types of incomes off of that, from pressing the oils to the protein that it has inside of there, and using that type of stuff, and the waste from that, great animal feed. So then there's another one, so now we're talking about 3 sources of income just from the seeds itself, and not even talking about the cannabinoids that you're going to be still getting. The only thing that changes when you mix it all together and you do an extract is your percent yield. The cannabinoids and everything that the plant has to offer are still in there, no matter how well it is. You just get more of that oil when you do the extraction, when it's like a pure nug, than when it's actually seeded. You're just going to get a lot more that way, which makes sense. So that's why people are focusing on that one thing. But me and my ADD, man, I can't focus on one thing like that. I want to take care of like as much spokes of the wheel as possible. And I want to explore that because that's the only advantage that I have against when it starts going industrial the way it is. That's the only advantage I have to be able to make it to where I could show people that I am doing this research. I am passionate about this. I have to sell myself as well as what I'm doing and share my passion with the people in order to set myself apart from this whole industrial, hemp movement that's going on, where they're only focusing on the cannabinoids, and it's even nagging down to only ones that get you high and stuff now too. They're coming out with all these new cannabinoids. I don't know if you've been hit up on that or anything like that. The new cannabinoids are coming out. It's been kind of crazy. But I'm just trying to let's try to focus on things that we understand there's a bunch of cannabinoids inside the plant, and 100 plus. So let's make sure we do an extract that's just going to keep all of those cannabinoids inside there. Let's not start chipping away and then making it only about one cannabinoid, but maybe about the whole plant itself and everything that the plant has to offer, because all of it's going to work synergistically together. So let's allow as much of a concentrate of it, of everything the plant has to offer, and then infusing that with the oil, whatever you want to use. We use hemp seed oil because we want to keep it 100% hemp, and that's what we do, and that sets us a little bit apart differently. But they kind of fear because it's not as consistent as just using isolates and putting these little bits into it like that scientifically. But when you actually extract something and then you allow the plants to have this diversity, it does so much more for you medicinally, because all of our endocannabinoid systems inside our body are all unique and different, and we need the diversity. It's in our DNA. It's in DNA in general, Diversity is key. And so it's very important that we have that diversity. And so that's why we don't go any more further than what we do as far as making a full extra cannabis oil and just having that and then infusing that into our hemp seed oil. That's as much as, processing as we really want to do. Once you start going to distillate, it still has traces. So that's cool. But then the isolates, now you're only taking one of the cannabinoids, one of the 100 plus that are out there, and you're knocking out all the terpenes that all have the health benefits and everything in there too. So then that's when it gets, it's a little sad to me, to where I think it's getting less on the natural side, and just more scientifically industrialized. So
have you ever heard of Dr. Ethan
Russo? Yes, I have. Yeah, I have actually. I think you mentioned him last time, and then I did my homework and I looked him up, and yeah, he has he's the one that's doing the classes and stuff to actually teach people about the endocannabinoid system. Is that correct?
Yeah, but he also is doing a breeding program where they're trying to breed out new what we would have called minor cannabinoids or exotic cannabinoids and terpenes. So he's the guy that started or coined the phrase the entourage effect, which is what you're talking about.
Yes.
And believe me, I've talked to many people about the fact that, when you have, lower THC, but you have better expressions of those minors or the terpenes, that it's more enjoyable. It's more thought-provoking, and I can't stress that enough. I mean, I don't like high THC. I like THC in the, mid-teens, but I want to see all those other expressions as well. And you can tell too. I mean, when you smell it and it really catches your nose, but it doesn't make you stupid. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I do.
I hate caps. I want something that's enjoyable. So anyway, needless to say, another thing that you hit on that I think people forget is that up until the mid-20s, until DuPont had Congress change the laws on hemp so that they could steal the rope market from the Navy with their new nylon, which is toxic. All animals ate hemp. That was their main staple of their food, and it grew wild everywhere, and everybody ate it. So for you to just take those seeds and scatter around the perimeter, throw a layer of compost on them to protect them so maybe they'll pop. The only problem you have is you got to catch them before they flower, or they'll seed out the rest of your field. But as they flower, you chop and drop and spray them with water. Forget it, or spray them with water first and then chop and drop. That pollen's not going anywhere. You've knocked it down. It's not viable as soon as it gets moist.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you can feed it to your chickens, or leave it there on the soil to layer to build soil. Or do you have any other animals?
We have chickens and we have goats. Goats will eat everything though. That's why I kind of like them.
and I love the idea of crushing up the seeds and using the protein. Do you have cats and dogs?
Yes.
All right, there you go. Just blend a little bit of that into their food. I'm sure they'll benefit tremendously from it. They have endocannabinoid systems too. So
all
they
mammals.
they could definitely benefit from those other spokes of the wheel that you're talking about. So, kudos to you for really thinking about all of the different potential uses. Because that's a part that a lot of people lose focus on. Is that they're about the money or the volume or the harvest or the extract instead of like, hey, there's a whole ecosystem that you're forgetting about. Whether it's a financial ecosystem or literally an ecosystem of the bringing in all those other predatory bugs and animals that will help support the overall ecosystem.
Yes. Yeah, and that's a big deal too to me because the bees actually this year, I was just talking to a beekeeper that I known for probably about 5 years now, and he said this year has been one of the worst years on the bees, and they have not been producing nearly as what they've been producing before, and the amount of counts even across like the nation has been low and stuff. I haven't fact checked him yet or anything, but he's a good source. He loves and is really passionate about his whole bee operation and everything like that. And he said that they were really low this year, and it kind of broke my heart and stuff because I'm looking around my farm and like I had some birds that I have like one plot that I just do a natural grow, just a chaotic kind of like letting things grow. I threw like a couple like I did the Three Sisters, which is the corn, the squash, and then the beans as well in there. And then besides that, I just let everything else just kind of grow all wild inside there. And these birds like planted this wild sunflower, and it's wild sunflower, like 2 of them are huge. And I grew sunflower in that spot, but there were giant sunflowers. But for some reason, that wild sunflowers that the birds planted through the manure, most likely, just took off. And now they're blooming since May. They've been making flowers, and every single morning I have a bunch of bees around there. But also now that the hemp, the male plants that I have in the field, since I'm not really worried about it, getting into my crop and stuff because I have a way of separating the seeds. And again, to me, it's just like the percent yield is the only thing that drops. And I'm okay with doing an extra wash or extra batch to be able to catch up on the full extra cannabis oil and stuff. All the terpenes are still there and everything. As far as everything I tested from when we had pure nugs with no seeds to ones with seeds, I tested them both. And the only thing was when I did a wash, I got more of the oil from the ones that weren't seeded. And then when I had the ones with the seeds, I got less of the oil, which makes sense that way. There's just less of it. But then I tested both of those and they were about the same as far as the cannabinoids and the terpenes goes and the diversity that's in there. So I was like, okay, as long as the cannabinoids and everything are in there, that's what really matters to me. So I'm okay with it if it gets seeded, since I have a system to be able to remove these seeds. I have a whole cool seed separator that's pretty awesome and stuff too. I've made and stuff. So that'll be for a different episode though. I'll show you guys that one. That one's gonna be pretty
cool. Yeah, I'd love to see it.
But onto the topic about with the bees and stuff. They love the pollen. Pollen is food for bees, and they're around all the hemp plants every morning. When I go out there, all I hear is just the humming and just a zzz, because there's so many of bees. They're all just feeding on them. And, I know there's probably people that are doing honey out here that's, 40 miles away, and the bees are probably coming over to my property just for that, for that pollen. So they have a food source that way. So, I'm down with feeding the bees, how, like I was saying, the importance of that pollen, even with the fermented plant extract is also a food source for the things that matter the most, which are the bees, So,
dude,
yeah.
I bet if you really look closely, you'll probably see maybe 5-10 different varieties of bees. Like that's I noticed that here. I had these tiny little ones, medium ones. I very rarely saw what I know as a domestic honeybee. It was always these indigenous bees. And that's really important for the overall ecosystem because the domestic honeybees have been bred to a point where they're so much more susceptible to these, collapses and viruses and diseases that it's not really like, duh, of course they're going to fucking not produce as well because they're getting nailed from, being in crops that are being treated with these synthetics, which makes them weaker and weaker and weaker. So, from generation to generation, they're in what we call genetic drift, which means they're unhealthy. And so it's really sad because
Yeah.
we're doing two things bad. They're out competing the local indigenous ones, and they're being subject to these synthetics. And so we lose both the domestic and the indigenous, or we reduce the populations because of the competition. So I think what you're doing is fantastic, dude. And it would be interesting if you did like go in there and try to snap pictures of them and then send them to an anthropologist and say, hey, what are these and how can I encourage them? Because I know there's like some really cool little bee nests, like tubes on a cardboard tubes on a frame. There was some that they actually made bricks with the little holes in them, and they're to help support the population so that they don't have to travel as far. And if you give them the ideal home, they're going to stay and they're going to multiply right in your area and support you on a higher level.
Yes. I love exactly what you're saying about the different diversity of the bees there. That's a big, huge thing that I've been looking at, because I found out there's like a whole bunch of different species of bees that are native to Nevada here. And they most of them live underground. They have like little burrows that are in the ground. And I remember it was probably about like a year or two. I remember just tripping on this bee that I haven't seen before. I knew it wasn't a honeybee, and I was following it around, and I was like digging a hole to be able to plant my plants in and stuff. And then I realized that on the side of the hole, it made a little burrow on the side. So while I was trying to plant my plant inside the ground, of the hole that I drilled, since I tried to make the holes to be able to make it to kind of grab more water and stuff, on the side of it, it made a little home from like this like dead tree root from like years ago that was inside there, and it burrowed inside, and it would like do like this kind of like pattern kind of around the spot, so I was trying not to like disturb it, and I was kind of like watching it kind of like how it just ended up going inside there. And so I kind of like, when I went inside there, kind of peeled a little bit, just enough not to like disturb it too much, but to see in there. And you can see like a little hole and like a bunch of pollen just packed up in there. Like it was just storing this stuff away, for its like next generation and stuff. And I was like, oh, okay. So made sure I was very careful around that plant when I was planting and not to disturb that and stuff. And it just trips me out. And then we also had this bumblebee on this stack of wood that we have from these poplars, these trees. I cut up, I put the stack of wood up there, and I realized there was this fat old bumblebee that would just start flying out every once in a while. And there was multiple of them. And I checked inside the stack of poplars, and the things actually made a hole inside of the whole stack of wood. Like they ate out the whole thing, and then they were putting a bunch of pollen inside of that. I accidentally didn't know it before I figured that out. I grabbed a log and I split it, and then I hacked it, and then like this bee came out all pissed off, and I was like, whoa, what the hell? And I looked inside there, and I saw the whole art of it's like, eating and storing and like the spot that it kind of burrowed into and everything like that. And this was going into wood too, and they like carved little channels inside of this whole like log that we had there sitting there. And I felt so damn bad. I was like, I didn't know I would have left that, if I knew, but it also liberated me to where like, wait a second. So if I keep like a good stack of wood here for these bees, then it's going to attract more of these bees. And then that's going to help out with, pollinating things that need the bees and everything. So like, keeping a good stack of wood is like really important to me now, because I've saw what happened, after I split that log, that they're using these logs to be able to, burrow into. And now I just going to have to be more self-aware when I go over there and I have to use the wood or I have to cook anything like that with it. Then I'll just make sure that it's okay. No bee colony. All right. Then, if there is, skip that log and then leave that there. Let the bees do the thing and stuff. So having a good stack of wood is important, and it'll draw them in. Like you were saying with the tubes and stuff, just log stacks out here, I guess, because it gets so dry that like it makes it easy for these, bumblebees to be able to burrow into. I don't know, but they definitely are.
Yeah, poplar's a softer wood, so that's what makes it really easy for them. And typically, you'll notice the hole and the sawdust underneath the hole. So if you find that, you just go, okay, this log's a special log. Put this one off to the side, and use the rest for heating or cooking or whatever you're using.
Yeah. Awesome. Yes, you're 100% right, because that was another thing too. You see the sawdust, and I'm like, damn, what are these guys doing? Just like,
right? And how much, dude? It's like a pile of fucking sawdust. It's not just a little pinch.
Yes,
so you know they're working hard.
Yes, yeah. That's why I'm like, I felt so bad when I grabbed that and it split. I was like, oh my god, this poor thing. I'm like, I know that he was working so hard on it, and I just destroyed its home in like one solid slip of the axe.
Hey, you learned.
I learned though.
Yeah, you learned a really valuable lesson, and it's a shame you didn't take a picture of it because
Yeah.
I bet it was like sacred geometry,
It
something
is.
easy.
Yes, it is. It really is. I took a picture. I think it was when I had an iPhone and then I switched now over to Android. So it's probably like in the iCloud somewhere, So, but it was also it was years ago too when it happened. And since then, I kept a stack of wood, and they're still back and they're flying around here and they're loving that same tree that I was just talking to you, or not tree, but the sunflower, the wild sunflower that I just talked to you about. They're all over that thing too. And yeah, like you're saying, the different types of species, man. It's a trip to be able to see all those things. But I am shocked by how many domesticated ones. I could tell that there is a lot of domesticated ones. So I'm thinking someone around me is doing honey or something, and they're probably really in love with my field and stuff and coming out here because I'm seeing a lot of those domesticated ones still. And in our area, honey is very very popular. Like this whole desert honey thing that people are doing. There's a lot of hives. People are trying it out and everything too. So
interesting. I wonder if like you could like search local honey producers and see how many colonies are around you, because you may be just supporting a whole like small industry that you don't even know about.
Yeah, no. A lot of people do. There's also people that go over to Tonopah, which is about like an hour and a half away from us. And then there's a huge producer out there, and they'll get the honey there, and then we either resell it over here or do it more natural. Like my friend, shout out to my buddy Frank. He does it more naturally. He has his own colonies, and he's been doing it a lot of times. And like, he even told me about problems of the bees just getting out and absconding, which is where they just swarm and grab the queen, and then they just start moving out to somewhere else and stuff. And if they're not happy where they are, that's what they're going to do. And then they're going to go and find some other spot. And so that's why a lot of times you can see like swarms of bees just like somewhere they're looking for a home, and you could grab them literally with like, a bag or a box or something like that and scoop them in there. And they're not really going to attack you much because they're just all just defending the queen and just moving the whole thing. It's a pretty crazy, wild thing when you see them abscond like that. But, he's a good dude. Like he taught me a lot about the way the bees kind of work and what their like, thought process is and stuff, and how it's important to try to keep them happy. Otherwise they will just up and ditch,
So a buddy of mine, crazy motherfucker, Mark Byron, had a killer bee swarm on his front porch in Vieques. It's an island south of Puerto Rico. And, he obviously didn't want to get stung because, that was his main entrance in and out of the house. And so he decided he was going to become a beekeeper. So he went down the rabbit hole, figured out how to move them, how to get the queen. And it took him a couple of tries. He had the full garb because these are killer bees. Like they bite and sting you at the same time. So you get these huge welts. And and you're talking about a swarm of them. Right?
Yeah, yikes.
So he got really, crazy in protecting himself and trying to protect the queen. He really wanted to keep this. And the reason he wanted to keep it was he wanted to mount it on his front steps as a security system. Seriously, dude.
I love it.
Because he had gotten broken into a couple of times, and they always broke in on the front because they could either have their horse tie up to the metal grates or use a car and tie it to the metal grates, where they couldn't do it on the other side of the house where he comes in and out, because there's this long dirt road to get up to the house from the backside. But on the front side, there was a road within, 20, 30 feet from the house. So he set up the bee nest on the front of the house where he never goes, never got broken again.
Yeah, that's an ultimate alarm system right there.
Yeah,
man.
You gotta wonder how many suckers got nailed by these motherfuckers. Trying to tie their rope around the fucking metal bars and rip them off the windows so they could break in the house.
Yep. And if you see him in the streets, you know who did it. Like it's not going to be hard to find the guys.
He's probably going to be in bed for a week trying to get rid of all the poison, right?
Yep. Yeah, definitely. If he even survives that, that's crazy, man. Yeah. Killer bees are no joke.
No, they're not. They're no joke at all. Yeah. So anyway, I thought I'd share that funny story. But awesome. Even here in Oxnard, right? When I took a little corner garden, it was just sand because I live in a place called the Dunes. and I added compost, and then I got a local wildflower indigenous mix and set it up and again just watered it. My dogs actually had a little trail they ran through there, which was really cool, and I just let it go. And then, pretty quickly after things started to flower, I just noticed that it was moving, and you'd go over and you'd look and you'd be like, oh my God, look at all these different bugs. And where I am, we don't even have screens on our doors or windows because we have no bugs. Like we have daddy long legs and male mosquitoes, no female mosquitoes, a couple butterflies, but unfortunately, because I live in the flats, strawberry flats, they use a lot of pesticides here. And so it's sad, but this really encouraged me to the fact that I created this little oasis or stop ground for them to come to and thrive in. So I mean, even on your property, if you did the same thing, create these little flower gardens, all over the place. Yep. You're just going to build that whole ecology. And dude, like I had singing birds. Like I've lived here for a couple of years before I did it. And all of a sudden we had singing birds. We have hummingbirds, but we didn't have singing birds. And those are freaking cool. I forget the one that talks. It's not the white and black one, but it has. It's known as having a very, very complex, diverse songs.
Is it magpie or canary or canary?
It's not the magpie, but it's like the magpie. It's very close cousin to the magpie. Okay. Yeah, they're super smart, like the magpies. They take things and build nests with like shiny things and things that they scrap, which is really cool. And so again, it's not the magpie, but it's like a close cousin or something. It might be a mockingbird. I don't know, dude. It very well might be a mockingbird. Could be. Ken, if you can search mockingbird, pull it up, throw it on the screen. I'll see if that's what it is. Yeah. But it's just a really cool bird.
Nice. Yeah, we've been getting on some pretty good little tiny sparrows kind of that have been flying around and stuff like that. And I think those are the ones that actually planted that, wild sunflower, because we didn't have wild sunflower in our area. If you go maybe about a quarter mile down the hill where the rocks kind of go down and it goes more into the valley, then there's like a whole branch of them when the desert blooms. There'll be a whole bunch of them just all everywhere. And
that's what it looks like. See, it's brown and white, not white and black.
Wow, okay. I never realized that's what a mockingbird. That's cool. We might even get those around here because we have a whole bunch of those guys that are all jumping around. They're super small though. The ones we have.
Dude, the songs are amazing. Like and you can kind of chirp back at it and it'll respond. Like it knows you're trying to communicate.
Yeah.
And they'll hang out while you're doing it. So cool bird.
Yeah, and then we also use we have the what's called like a swamp cooler or evaporative coolers and stuff on the house, and a lot of those birds would come over there and they'll grab onto it and start drinking from the water that kind of trickles through and then goes through and stuff. So like that's kind of a cool concept too. I thought I was like, oh well, even the swamp cooler is kind of helping to give them water and stuff. There are the times when they have like shelter away from the sun from these huge giant sunflowers and stuff and like the wild ones and stuff. It's crazy. Yeah, so it's good when it's like building these type of environments.
You built a horizontal bird or a vertical bird feeder or bird water.
And it's cool in my house too, So that's why I was like, swamp coolers are kind of cool, man, that way. But the minute the tsunami comes in, if there's moisture in the air, then they just stop working and you're just miserable. But but besides that, I mean, that's only like maybe a couple weeks out of the whole summer that happens. And then besides that, you're still sitting at probably close to like 86 sometimes when it's like 115 out and stuff. So, but I mean, the concept of them is very simple. I love the fact of like the water that comes through there and the fact that the birds can do it. There was like this male that would come over and start telling everyone else about the water source, and so he will start like singing this crazy song, and it's just like beautiful because I never heard it, and it's going right into my house because it's like right on the swamp cooler telling everybody about it. And I'm like, what kind of bird? And I tried to sneak up on it. I tried to find this bird, and I snuck up as gentle as I could, opened the door, closed it, and then walked over there. And then right when I see the thing, it just dips out like immediately. I'm like, yeah, this thing is very wild. It's not used to being around me at all. So that's a new bird, and it had like a beautiful song. And it was just like swinging in the rain. I know it'll do it every single time in the swamp cooler. So I'm like, that's its water song, And so like they have these these rhythms and the songs and stuff they have for certain things, whether it's a threat, food source, water, and all that. They'll like do these different pitches and stuff. And that thing was telling the whole story, man, when it was on that water cooler. And it'll happen like every morning and stuff. And I'll go out there and try to see it, and I just never can. I got a glimpse of like maybe like yellow, so it had like some sort of yellow on it, but like that thing was dipping out right when it saw me, man. It's crazy.
Too cool, man.
Do
you collect your algae from your swamp cooler?
In the swamp cooler, it's circulating, so I don't really get too much algae. I get like calcium buildup, but not much algae. Usually the algae kind of comes from like the animal water bins, and that was another thing I was looking into, is how like important that could be for compost piles and stuff too, and throwing that stuff in there, the agenic acid and all that. Most of the time I just dump it out, and then usually it's be like by a tree or something like that when they have. I've tried to make sure a tree is by all of my water sources, so then any sort of spillage that happens off of that just feeds that tree. And so dumping that out, I think it's just also been like helping to feed the tree that's right there in that spot. But that would be a whole nother concept. I have to kind of I should do that. We have a lot of it's green algae, so it should be some good stuff there. But yeah, slimy as hell, and you have to scrape it out of like the whole bowl in the pan. So algae grows really crazy out here. But I got to start looking into composting that, because that's a good sign for good stuff.
Yeah, it's the filamentous green algae. A buddy of mine, he's actually the senior professor at Santa Fe Community College. His name is Charlie Schultz. One of the smartest guys I've ever met. Farms with water, so he's not a soil guy; he's a water guy. Well, hydroponics, aquaponics, algae production.
Wow.
He's actually done some amazing work where they used algae to turn sand into soil.
What?
Yeah, no joke, man. We did a similar experiment with muncher juice, which is food waste converted into basically a biological stimulant. Biological inoculant. It's got all these incredible properties. And we grew tomatoes in buckets of sand. So we did one bucket with muncher juice diluted 10-to-1, 2 applications, side by side with Miracle Grow based on their recommendations. And the third one we did control, which was just water. Mm-hmm. The Miracle Grow one pretty much died. It got attacked by hornworms and just shredded them. Ooh. It was next to the other two plants. The hornworms did get on the control, didn't spend a lot of time on it, just did a little bit minor damage, but they never touched the one with muncher juice. And at the end of the experiment, I took the buckets and I cut down the fronts because I wanted to see the soil. Yeah, we had 4 inches of topsoil, insane. Whoa. All right, and even beyond that, which just absolutely blew my mind, was I reached in because I was going to pull out the plant, measure the root ball, do some other data collection. And I realized I was holding aggregates in sand. Like the other 2 buckets, I'd dick my hand in there and the sand would just fall through my hand. But that one, I could pick up these golf ball sized aggregates that were totally stable. Whoa. So it turns sand into soil.
Nice.
There it is. Look at it. One on the left.
Yeah.
Right?
Whoa.
Isn't that nuts?
That is. What?
Yeah. Yeah. And believe it or not, I'm working on building a small version of it. Something that I can produce here and ship around, or we'll get you, once we get the bigger machine fully into production, it'll be something that we can offer to people like you, or sometime hopefully in the near future, we'll be able to sell small machines for people like you to support your local community. Because once you get the topsoil built, it holds more moisture.
Yes.
So we actually increase the silt 5x and the clay 1x.
Nice.
Out of sand.
Out of sand, though. That's crazy.
Out of sand, dude. And the thing about aggregates is they're little sponges. And so those little sponges hold the moisture and prevent it from either leaching, which is going down, or evaporating, going up.
Going up,
it's like jump starting, the soil system into something way more fertile that will support better plant life And again, the plants come in, the roots come in, and you're just getting that whole cycle rolling.
Yeah, I love that concept, man. That's awesome. And sand's a pretty hard thing to do, to be able to change into a good soil like that, man. That's awesome. I'm glad that's working like that.
Dude,
Yeah, I would love to. What,
2 applications,
2
10-to-1 dilution. Imagine if we did 5-to-1 dilution, which is our usual recommendation, and we repeated, did 6 applications, how much more that would have gone down?
Yeah. Wow.
So when I start producing on small scale, I'll hit you up.
Yes.
And I'll get you sent out a bottle of it, a jug of it, so you can play with it. Because I know you'll play with it. Like some people, send it, but then they won't do anything.
Yeah. No, that's what we're all about. We're all about that agricultural R&D around here. So I love doing, like, switching things up. And even with my my hemp grow, I've been doing it differently almost every year because I want to try new stuff to see what really can work and stuff. So I've been practicing that. But the biggest thing that's been working the best is when I did my first grow, when I just drilled the holes down and then just throw a little bit of mitigation inside there and then plant the starters right into that hole, because that literally makes that little spot here, a little spot where the water would grab there. So you're using way less water, and you only have to mitigate that small spot, and then also mix a little bit of the native soil there, and then the roots would have a nice concentrate of good stuff there, but also go out and seek all the other spots into the natural native soil and have their roots extend all everywhere and stuff like that. But they have a good base of fertile soil there that's also mixed with the native soil, but then also allowing them to be able to go out of that. So it's like this pot with no limitation in a sense, and it's been working. I mean, I got killer big old plants last time that way, but the thing is, when it get too big, then they start breaking down and all that stuff. But this year, what we're doing differently, we're using this. This is the weed barrier, which we ended up putting on there, and then we got the plants in a little bit late, but they all kind of came in. They're kind of looking like palm trees and everything when we first started. Just kind of seeing that picture, but then they actually started to branch out and started to grow a lot better and stuff too. You can kind of see like that little palm tree turn into that, and then it got fingers growing and stuff. And usually that's the height we would like it to be, is at 2 to 3 feet tall by 2 to 3 feet wide, just because it got to take on the wind and everything. And so you see these ones usually by this time of year, we have all those fan leaves when they're out in the field. Those are usually all sucked dry, and they're just dying off, and they're breaking down. Everything goes towards the bud, but because of the fermented plant extract, which I believe is the biggest difference, as well as the trichodermas and the bacillus that we've been using, has actually been making those fan leaves stay on there longer, meaning that the soil's more fertile now. Like the resources of the soil from all the carbons and the cover crops that we did in the past in there, it's actually breaking all that stuff down and mining it into some good stuff. And then also the mycorrhizal fungi that we put on. We have our arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi that we treated the seeds with and did a treatment early when they were just the starters. So then we have that, and then while we're also using the trichodermas to start doing the mine work and all that, off of the outsides there. So we have a really good system now. I believe we're going to have success no matter what way we grow. But the best way, I think, was that even the most water conservation was just the bigger holes. This year we did holes, but they were smaller. But I think at least 8 inches in diameter. So it's like a pot, and then you kind of blend that spot. The only problem is it's kind of almost the same thing as tilling a hole in the ground, though. So then that could also be damaging a lot of the mycorrhizal fungi. My justification in my mind is that, well, I'm treating the starting soil with that mycorrhizal fungi. So when I put it back in there and then it starts fingering out, maybe it could also still reach the mycorrhizal fungi from the year before that I used, as well as maybe, reconnect some of that mycelium, even though that stuff, once it's broken, it's like your brain, it doesn't really reconnect. It just finds other ways to divert it. But it also still keeps a lot of the ground undisturbed and only disturbing that one spot where the pot's at, and just loosen it up. Give it that.
I can update on that. So
okay.
we've done experiments where we had a living bed, a tent indoors. We kept plants in it year round. We actually did dig out the root ball of the old plant so that we broke the mycorrhizae network. We put in compost in the hole. Again, we didn't do a huge hole. It was probably only, 6 inch diameter.
Yeah.
And we treated the seed in the new, in the little starter pot with mycorrhizae. Now, this is something we should talk about too. Without trichoderma, so this was a pure culture.
Yeah.
A lot of mycorrhizae products have the contaminant trichoderma, because trichoderma is everywhere. It grows in the air. It's crazy.
Yeah,
and it also outcompetes mycorrhizae. So it's really important that the mycorrhizae treatment come before the trichoderma treatment. So anyway, we did this experiment. We watched the root colonization. So we're doing regular root samples and verified that they were colonized. And then they did connect to the rest of the network. So they do. As soon as they come in contact with another filament, they join, because they want to trade information, nutrients, and biology.
Yeah, see, I knew it, man. I'm so glad you brought that up, because like I had them like this. It's got to make sense, It will go out there and it'll hit those, and then it's going to connect with those things, and that's going to be able to bring that in. That's so cool that you brought that up, because that was my instinctive thought. Like I was just like, dude, it's got to be, if we're only disturbing that one spot, and then once we have that network already growing, the roots hit that stuff, it's going to reconnect it and then bring that together and stuff, But I'm like, I just don't have much proof or practice on that, but it was just all theory in my mind and stuff. And so I'm so glad that you did mention that, because that was a big deal and stuff, And yeah, I know exactly what you're also talking about with the trichoderma being everywhere and stuff, and that's why we only use like these 2 certain strains that I was able to find good scholarly articles about how they do. Like there's even reports of them working symbiotically together, in a good relationship, where like the trichoderma is doing the mining and breaking stuff down, while the mycorrhizal fungi are actually bringing the stuff that the trichoderma breaks down over to the root system and stuff. And and that's why we make sure we get an arbuscular, so then it's like acting as an endo rather than ecto, which is like the other mycorrhizal fungi around the root system. The endo actually acts like a beneficial parasite and goes and attaches to the roots and allows nutrient uptake and stuff, and water and all that stuff to be able to pass easier through that root system and everything too. So
diversity is critical.
It is.
Right?
It
you
is.
don't want one, like another study that I read years ago was, if you get mycorrhizae colonization, I think it's over 50%. It may only be 40. You really want to be down around 40% colonization. That allows the trichoderma to colonize the other plant locations or plant sites. And when you get over that 50% mark, the mycorrhizae actually becomes an opportunist. It's actually taking more away from the plant and giving it to other plants than it is benefiting that plant. So that now your plant becomes a parent, and now it's supporting all these other plants around it. And if you're going for a high cash crop like cannabis, you don't want that. Now, in nature, if you have a grandfather tree, you want that grandfather tree to send out extra nutrients to support the little ones, or the ones that are trying to get up, or maybe they're trying to, make more pine cones to make more trees, et cetera, et cetera. So there's definitely a balance, but when you're farming, you have to take a little bit different of an approach, that you don't want your plant to ever be to a point where it's being drained of its, benefit to you.
Yeah. So. Yes. Big time. And that's a big deal there and stuff. And that's why it's, a lot of even the other people I talked, in the past and stuff, they were even saying about how they would never even use trichodermas, even if it was going to be, be able to synergistically work, because they are in the fear of it destroying the mycorrhizal fungi, which I'm like, I understand that 100%, but and that's why it's important that you get the right strains, the ones that do have the scholarly articles, or like, at least some scientific tests that were done that actually show that they can work synergistically together. And believe me, I mean, we had a problem with Fusarium in the past. We've had problems with root rot, and most of the plants all end up like, growing and stuff. And then like half of it would like die off because they'll get like some sort of bacterial infection, or like some sort of fungal infection that's inside the soil already there. And this year I haven't had that. And that was the coolest thing. If the plants are dying, it's from something completely different else, but not from anything as far as like root rot or Fusarium. And so that's showing that trichoderma is actually like working and doing its job that it needs to be, and helping it to be growing and stuff. And so
no, they're definitely a form of pesticide. Absolutely, right? 100%. Yeah. And usually it's the fungals that they can outcompete the pathogenic fungi. And I have heard some talk about when you put it on a foliar, it also prevents certain bacteria infections as well. So, no, again, like diversity. Just can't say it enough. But responsible, so that you're not like out competing one or the other, or giving one a better foothold than the other.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the way I look at it is like, okay, yeah, we want as much diversity as possible, but every once in a while, sometimes it's always good to add a little bit of a leader in there. Like it's not gonna totally mess them up like the other types that are microbes that are out there, but it's gonna lead the crowd, a little bit to be able to have it to where like, okay, at least if all else fails and some stuff gets unbalanced, we have these major leaders that are going to be helping to balance out. So the worst scenario is that you have more of these guys that are beneficial for your soil. It's like that's the worst case scenario. If you're keeping it diverse and you're always introducing that. And that's why we also do this compost teas and everything too, from like our worm bin and stuff that we have outside. And we take that and we make our compost teas. And then we also do the fermented plant extracts to kind of balance the pH a little bit, just adding just enough. With the fermented plant extracts, you're only looking at maybe like 1 to 1,000 or 1 to 500 as a mix ratio to be able to use it. And it still does great stuff to where like a compost tea, you're going to have a more diversity because you're hitting it harder with a 1 in 10, which those ratios are way different. It's like you have to use 1,000 times less or 1,000 times more of the compost tea compared to the fermented plant extract, and that's so to me, it's like that's not going to be much competition for the amount of diversity that's in the compost tea, especially when these guys are anaerobic and then those guys are aerobic, and just putting them out at the same time, they'll figure this stuff out, themselves. As long as it's all beneficial, good stuff, they'll figure out, and usually only the losers are always the ones that are probably not as good as what you want them to be and stuff in there.
Well,
so.
they're food, right?
Yeah.
They're still food.
That's right.
So
yes.
They're as long as you have a good established biome in your soil, then the diversity is only there, or the abundance is only there based on the diversity.
That's
so
right.
The more diversity you have, the more you can keep everything in balance, and one does not outcompete the other. Yeah. But you're absolutely right about using anaerobes mixed with aerobes to get wonderful results.
Yeah.
The EM1 is an amazing anaerobe, right?
It is.
And they call it an anaerobe because it lives in no oxygen. But if you think about it, it's a symbiotic system in itself. It lives without oxygen, but each one's doing something that's creating food for the other one.
Yes, exactly.
How can that be bad? How is that possibly bad? Right?
Yes, exactly. Yep. Yeah.
So again, people tend to knee jerk when you start talking about anaerobic conditions, which is why I always try to lean toward fermentation, and people get less scared of fermentation. And especially when you say, "Hey, you like pickles?" Hello.
Yeah. That's right, though. That's fermentation. Yeah, and salt brines are even fermentations and all that too and stuff. So yeah, it's really good stuff. So
did you have a good food garden this year?
Yes, I did. I got success on almost every variety of pepper that I planted. The tomatoes were a little bit too stressed from the heat. I had like a evaporative cooler inside my high tunnel, and it stopped making water. It stopped that the pump inside there wasn't working right, and I replaced it, and it still wasn't working right. And then I found out later on, after the season was pretty much over, there was a kink in the hose that was behind it I couldn't even see, and so that was the real reason. Like I thought the pump wasn't working, but it was this kink in the hose that wasn't allowing the water to circulate and get down there. So I got it fixed now, but now it's like already cooling down a little bit, and still a lot of the varieties of tomatoes I tried aren't producing. But the one that I have seed trained a certain heirloom variety, and that's like the only one out of the tomatoes I tried this year that actually were producing. And it makes like this crazy, like apocalyptic looking fruit that, tomato fruit. It kind of splits on the top a little bit, grows all kind of almost deformed looking. But when you slice it open, the nutrient density, you can just see it with your eyes. It's like super thick and like a nice dark red, not like that light red that's like, just pretty much full of just nothing, chlorophyll pretty much. But it has the nutrition that's inside of it, and you can taste it too. My kid doesn't even like, my son, he's 10 years old and doesn't like tomatoes, But I sliced up one and I gave him a piece with a little bit of salt on him, and he was like, "Oh, that's good. Like I can eat those." He'll take them off this burger when I put them on there, and then just eat it separate now, just by itself like that, because he's starting to get that flavor from it, because it's all about that nutrient density, And I was able to grow all that stuff without any sort of synthetic fertilizers inside the greenhouse because of that regenerative ag system that we're using, which is what I call it. Pretty much just consists of growing that cover crop and then laying the cover crop down, throwing some compost over top of it, hemp char, biochar, any sort of hemp kashi, stuff like that, all that good stuff on top of it. And then we put that weed barrow down, and then we plant directly in there, drilling the holes and stuff, and then putting the plants inside there. And it's been working really well inside the greenhouse there. This is our second year, and I had nothing but just our fermented plant extracts and compost teas, and a little bit of stuff that helps boost those already, consisting of like fulvic acid, humic acid, fish aminos, also like a little bit of this, the seaweed extract and stuff like that too. So on top of stuff, and that's a system that's working. The plants has never been greener. I mean, it's gorgeous. They're looking really good and stuff. I'm going to have to do a trellis next year because the peppers got so fat that they're like snapping. The branches are going down and all that. So I have to trellis next year, put it so they could grow into that. And then the fruit would lay on that. And so, because now they're kind of laying down. I didn't send a picture. I should have, but it's on my social media. If you guys want to check that out, over like Facebook and stuff, I have blog posts there on Instagram as well of the fruits and how well they're doing and everything there too. So, I'm very satisfied. I just wish I planted more of even what I did last year, because all of the tomatoes that I did were all new ones, because we had a packet of like different diversity of tomato seeds, but they're all like from like the north, colder climates. And so none of them really did anything. They're just growing a bunch of foliar, which is showing that the soil already has good sense of nitrogen inside of it, which I think we already looked at the last time we were talking. We looked at the soil report, and it did have that nitrogen already in there. And that was from this, regenerative ag system I've been using and stuff. So we're getting high nitrogen. The phosphorus is now becoming more available too, putting the right microbes in there. They start mining that stuff to be able to make sure that's available. So don't ever have to add phosphorus. We got enough rocks there too that hopefully, that trichoderma, the mycorrhizal fungi would be able to figure out how to mine that stuff away and be able to, make it plant available and everything. So it's got tested for it has enough phosphorus. So that's one of the hardest things to actually kind of add to the soil in that way. And we already got plenty of it. Just got to make it plant available every single year, keep those microbes going.
Yeah. And products like, fish brew, and there's going to be a new version of that hopefully coming out next spring.
Okay.
But they have tons of phosphate solubilizing, potassium solubilizing, nitrogen fixers, because there's organic nitrogen in our soils that's bound up, like you saw in your report.
Yep.
But without those fixers or miners or solubilizers, you're just not going to get that.
That's right.
And then you got the degraders too. That once they get on the rock, they'll start degrading the rock and expose more of these minerals and nutrients.
Exactly. And those rocks, we have a whole lot of rocks, and I know that inside those rocks there's a bunch of stuff. They just have to chelate them, put the right stuff in it. That's why we use the fulvic acids and stuff and the humic acids and all that. It's because we want to just chelate the nutrients that are already there, make them plant available, so then the plants will be able to absorb it, give the plant what it needs so then it can use what's already in your soil to be able to grow, And
so there's a difference between what I want to call virgin rock and degraded rock. And you're gonna make sense. This is gonna make sense to you as I explain it. Okay. So the virgin rock is super hard, dense. You whack it with a hammer, you get a little chip. The rotten or degraded rock, you hit it with a hammer, and it just kind of crumbles, right? Okay. So take some humic acid and pour it on a rotten rock and watch what happens.
Okay.
It just releases all of this fucking mineral. It's crazy because the organic acids get into those little tiny cracks and expand and consume and break it down even more. Nice. And you're basically making rock dust that you can sprinkle into your holes or on top of your soil as you're going along.
Yes. That's awesome.
Dude, I accidentally spilled some that I make on an asphalt driveway. 2 weeks later, that driveway was full of cracks. I fucking ate the driveway, dude. We were laughing about it, but I was like, "Oh fuck! I hope I don't get caught." Right?
Yeah.
It was an old driveway. You know how you can see where the car drives on an older driveway because it kind of sinks a little. So it had that, right, and it did have some cracks in it. But man, where I spilled it, first of all, we couldn't wash it off. Right? It was a stain. And then weeks later, it came back, and it was just crumbled. It was just little pieces. So I know it works. It'll work on anything, dude. It'll work on anything.
Yeah, if you can work on asphalt, and I'm pretty sure it will work on any type of rocks out here too. I think that's all concept for me is just to have that breakdown in the hole like that naturally. That'd be great.
Yeah, you can make it yourself. All you do is you take your really old compost, throw it in a 5-gallon bucket with water, hit it with a cordless drill and a paint mixer. Stir it up till you create chocolate water, where it doesn't just fall out of suspension, right? That's pure humic acid that you made yourself. Yeah. And pour that on those rotten rocks, man. You're gonna make mineral powders like nobody's business.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm gonna have to start doing it because I'm like, gotta do something with these rocks, man. Got it. You can see all the rocks I got out there. I'm like literally growing in rocks. That's the whole thing, you know. That's the land I got, and so that's what I'm using. But everything I was looking at, it's just like it's hard on the farming equipment, but there is like those beneficials that are inside there. You know, there's a lot of the natural elements of like minerals and stuff that are in there. So, you know, once you deal with how hard it is to work around them, then you can start breaking them down, like with the way that you're talking about doing, man. Yeah, making the natural humics and everything like that. That's where it's at, man.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's so cool to see just how much it degrades the older rock. It'll blow your mind. You'll be like, oh my God, this is crazy. So you'll have fun with that one for sure.
Yeah, awesome.
So one other thing, like, so the weed cloth that you use, you have to use that, right?
So inside it's been working really well because it's been blocking the weeds. Outside, it hasn't been blocking the weeds as much. Like the hole that I had the plants growing in, there was grass that would grow on the outside of there. So they were having the same type of competition going on there. So it wasn't doing what I wanted to do this year, which you can probably see a little bit of the grass growing there. All that grass got even more extreme. There's a couple of pictures there of like the plants a little bit bigger that I don't know if I was able to send them because I couldn't. You can only send so many pictures, but yeah, you kind of see the grasses there growing. That got so out of control to where it looked almost as if there wasn't even a weed bearer in some of the times because they would just grow all out and then the plant would be in the middle there and the grasses would just start kind of suffocating out the plants the same way it was doing when I didn't have the weed bearer. So as far as the outdoor grow, it wasn't really working that well. But as far as my high tunnel rise system, I haven't had to worry about any of the weeds. You know, I'm getting worms and using a lot less water by using that. And so that's why, to me, it's just like kind of like a good skin cover on there. I am aware, however, I did find out about because it's polypropylene, it's a plastic. And so it could be also leaching microplastics to my soil. So I've been looking into different types of plastic additives that could actually break down into like a landfill spot and doesn't leak microplastics, which is a whole nother topic and story in itself. And I was looking in and found this, companies from overseas and stuff that actually have these additives that are able to make a polypropylene weed barrier with this additive, but it will break down and theoretically not release microplastics. But then that's going to be a whole nother study in itself there too. You know, there's also, different things you could use jute, you could use jute or different plant fibers and all that stuff, but they will break down really fast. And then by the time they break down, they're already getting weeds again. Because we have these very viney weeds that survive even the most smothering possible. We have the crabgrass, and then we also have this ivy that just goes everywhere, and it'll work its way all the way through, and then still pop out in the corner, and then survive enough to still try to mess with your root systems and all that. So you have to have some sort of suppression like that to keep them down until those are terminated. And then once those are terminated, then we could probably start planting without it, but. As long as there's still signs of those things, we are going to have to use them, But yeah, I'm trying to work on being able to figure out a different step to be able to make a more eco-friendly plastic cover that's also weaved and permeable the way this one is. So it's not suffocating the soil so much and also not overheating it because air and water can still pass through it. Where the only ones that are biodegradable are films, and they kind of just suffocate the crap out of the soil. And so that's exactly what I don't want to do. So finding the right soil cover to go on top of my whole lasagna of compost and cover crops and stuff is like a big thing. So if it's not out there, then I'm just gonna invent it myself. It's kind of my mentality.
Have you tried like just burying it with chips like 6-8 inches deep?
I have, and
it doesn't work.
Yeah, I did that actually on one of my outdoor grows, and then the crabgrass just took over, and then no other weeds popped up but the crabgrass, and the crabgrass absolutely loved it. And so any sort of plants that I planted in there, the roots would just get suffocated by the crabgrass, and so they weren't growing as big or as bigger because they just had this huge layer of crabgrass of just viney stuff that was just growing in there. And now even the ivy started to grow through that, so it just encouraged the wrong type of weeds to start growing through. Once those
the thing about crabgrass that most people don't know is it actually has its own built-in herbicide.
Okay.
The roots of the crabgrass will kill the plant that it comes in contact with.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't know that. I thought it was just them just suffocating it. I didn't know it was actually.
No, it actually has a fucking herbicide that it leaks out, and it doesn't leak it until it touches another root. And then it's like it gives it a squirt. So the other plant doesn't have a chance.
God.
Yeah. Crabgrass is nasty ass shit.
Yeah, and it really is. That's why I'm like, I have to try to suffocate that out because there's no other way to do it unless if I'm just digging out the ground and then sifting it all out, which is going to be a pain in the dick, and I'm not doing that.
You're never going to get to the seed pool.
No.
It's always going to be down there.
Yeah.
And again, remember that plant has been around for a long time. So as your soil got built up due to wind, rain, and erosion, it's still going to be down there. And so digging it up is only going to expose it and make it more prolific. So I think again, I'm not a big fan of weed suppression using tars, but you have to do what you have to do, dude.
Exactly.
If you're trying to make a living, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
And know that there are biology and bacteria that eat those microplastics.
Yes.
And again, it's like it's an awareness thing. Yes, we need to be aware. We need to be using less plastic, right?
Yes.
That's really fucking important.
Yes.
The same regard, nature will eventually get rid of it.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate for our own consumption and other things that are getting exposed to it, but nature finds a way, man. Nature will always find a way.
It does.
Another project I'm working on, which may help to alleviate this, is I did an experiment about 5 years ago where I mixed super chunky cocoa coir with a product called pit moss, which is just ground up cardboard. I used gypsum and I used Portland cement, and I made a paper mache. And basically, I was doing this experiment for strawberries because I'm surrounded by strawberries. I think they typically do 2 plantings a year. They have a summer strawberry and a winter strawberry.
Okay.
And each time they have to use 2 layers of plastic because the weeds are they've gotten so used to it, they just pop holes in the plastic.
Whoa.
So they had to add a second layer. So it was something like 4 billion square feet of plastic a year being used and then dumped, because every time they take out one crop, get ready for the next crop, they have to put more plastic back out.
Yep.
So I made this paper mache product. I put it outside in my garden, poked a hole in it, to represent where the plant would grow. I put a plant in there. I watered it. It got rained on, and it lasted for over 2 years.
Whoa.
Yeah. Right. And it may have gone 3. Unfortunately, I wanted to add my wildflower garden to it. So I just basically threw compost all over everything, and I smashed that up because it was still perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And then planted my wildflowers. But bottom line is that there's a gentleman out here who has a contact with what's called Driscoll Ryder's R&D wing. So they're the biggest berry producer in the world.
Okay.
And he was super interested to hear that we could do this. And so came up with a way of using a cement mixer and a concrete or grout pump to pump it out in the fields. And the rest of it they do with their own equipment that they already have. So we're not changing the farming paradigm or the way they're farming. But what this does is it keeps the soil aerobic.
Yes.
But weeds can't get through it. Right. And if you do till it in, you're adding nutrients to the soil. You're adding carbon to the soil. So it's a win-win-win. And now you've gotten rid of 8 billion square feet of plastic a year if it was adopted, right? If we were successful getting it to be adopted. So that's something that I'll be working on again, probably this winter. I don't think it's going to happen this fall because they're already planted up now. So when they rip out this and start gearing up for, they'll plant in spring for the summer strawberries. So we'll probably get a patch or two in spring of next year. So
awesome.
Yeah, I'll keep you posted on that one as well.
Please do.
Yeah, I just it's one of those things that it could revolutionize the industry.
Yes.
I mean, any type of wheat cloth, whether you bury it under mulch or whether you put it on the surface, it don't friggin' matter. I watered it. I let it sit in wet soil, and it didn't degrade. So,
wow, that's awesome. Yeah, the closest I've got is I found like some sort of like a polypropylene additive that'll actually break it down into when it's in landfill conditions. So it'll break down polypropylene in landfill conditions, and it's a pretty new thing. It's like patented by this company that's overseas, and you supposed to mix it in when it's during like the master batch of making the plastic. And then it will actually like break it down once it just goes anaerobic into the conditions, because the anaerobes that are in there are, triggered and activate during anaerobic conditions and stuff. So it will literally break down, even if you left it in the field and you put like compost over top of it or something like that. Theoretically, it'll start breaking down based off the scientific studies that they've done. But that's still so new that a lot of plastic additives have claimed to do these type of things, but still hasn't really worked and still left microplastics. There's something called OXO fragmentation that happens to plastics, and that's why it breaks down to those microplastics when they get, exposed to either like sunlight or oxidization. And that's when like the OXO fragmentation usually starts happening. It starts brittling up. We see it all the time out here in the desert. A piece of plastic that's sitting out somewhere. You go to pick it up and you grab it, and it just kind of brittles and falls apart. Yeah. Just turns into microplastics, and all those little microplastics stay everywhere. And but the whole idea is this is mixed into the master batch and then having it to where, it work and it just be just as strong as regular PP, plastics, and work the same way. So like, say if a farmer had to use that and they're already using the type of weed bearers, they don't have to really change their equipment much because the rolls and everything like that is still plastic, but it has that additive in there that when they go and grab that stuff to throw it away, it'll start breaking down with no microplastics, in anaerobic conditions. So that's next thing. I'm going to try to test it, but it's going to be it's a bit of a pricey study to do, So it's on my own and stuff, having to figure that out.
Yeah, dude, I got blown away when I first got out here and I was traveling around up to Peach Hill and stuff. You grab an old compound bucket and it just falls apart in your hand.
Yeah.
That's a compound bucket. That's thick ass fucking plastic.
Yes.
And those UVs just turn it into fucking dust. Yeah. It'll stay there. It'll stay there until you touch it.
Until you touch it.
It just blows up in your hand. It's like, what the fuck is this shit?
No, that's the truth. That's how it goes, man. And so just a lot of different studies, just things, like there's always a problems, and we always got to try to find new ways to solve them and stuff. So I understand definitely about, the use of the plastics and all that stuff, and doing my best to try to figure out a way that I could change that course, and do it a better way. So keep me posted on your stuff. I'll keep you posted on mine and stuff, and we'll see how
you'll be back on. You'll be back on.
Yeah,
we'll catch up then. All right, well, it's time to break. You've got 5 questions we've got to get through. So, Ken, why don't you spin them up? We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, and let's start off with the bees, the small little ones. Those are mason bees, and they lay their eggs and they put in a food source. They build a wall, and that can go, like if that tube is say 6 inches long, there could be 10 or 12 different bees in there for the next season. That's their next season. where your honeybees will live, over a winter. The mason bees, bumblebees, etc., they actually will only hibernate over the winter. As for the swarming, when they swarm, they are non-aggressive, and you can literally reach a hand in, and if you happen to grab the queen, the whole swarm will actually come with you.
Yeah.
As for the guys they were talking about underground, honeybees will live in an underground environment, especially in a desert environment, because it's about maintaining airflow and it's got to be cool. But generally, for most areas, it's going to be wasps that are living underground, and of course, your larger bumblebees.
Yeah.
But all bees other than honeybees die off in the fall, and then in the spring, they come out again. The ones that have survived over the winter to build new hives. I'm going to have to do another teaching video on organic beekeeping. I've done one, but it got taken away from another channel. But I'll have to do that again because there's a lot of information. It's just like bees, when they fly out of the hive to go search for pollen and flowers, they have color vision. When they're returning to the hive, they can literally turn that color vision off to fly back to the hive. That's where, if you're painting your hives to be distinctive, it's the outline of the shapes that the bees are going to see. They're not seeing the color of the hive. It's the shape. And will live in logs. They'll live anywhere they can. The two things on swarming, there's two reasons, and Leighton mentioned the one where if the hive, there's a problem inside of the hive, the whole colony will pick up and leave because there's a problem, like mites or the different things that can happen. But the other reason is when the hive gets to a certain level that they can't continue on, there's too much honeycomb, too much packed honey, or the queen gets old, they'll do make a new queen, and that new queen will take half of the hive and fly away to find a new location to live in. And the old queen, she'll make enough where that hive will keep going, but then overpopulation will cause what's called the swarming effect, and they'll fly away to find a new home. And you can capture those in swarm traps and start your own local bees. And you're always better off to have local bees than to buy queens that are coming from Venezuela or places. They're not in tune with your local environment, and that's where we get a lot of this, what's called winter kill, because we have bees that have no conception of how to live in close to Death Valley where you are, or in Canada where I am. They just keep producing new bees and don't switch to a bee that can survive the winter. But that's we'll get off the bees, we'll get into the questions. The first one, this is awesome. Can we do this for veggie gardens? I have sunflower seed pollen I have to watch from the beginning, but thank you. This is how I am going to find my community.
Awesome.
I'm assuming she's talking about the fermentation, right?
Yes. The original fermentation, the buckets that we showed.
I definitely think you definitely could do it with any pollen. I think almost all pollen does have like some sort of hormones inside it that help the plant to grow and everything too, since the pollen is one of the main things to be able to help the seed to start growing. Besides when the stigma comes out, the pollen attaches to that, and the plant itself will start giving as much as it can to the seed. But there's also that stored stuff that's inside the pollen besides the DNA to make the seed happen that is like contained in there. And also based off all the studies I was looking at and everything like that, there's a lot of good stuff in pollen in general. That's why bees could survive off of it. So that means there's a source of protein inside there, because everything needs protein to survive that's living in it. So if they're able to feed off of this pollen and use this pollen for their to survive, and to do all the work that a bee does on a daily basis, then there's got to be some really good protein sources there. So I think any sort of plant could be just as valuable in that way. The only other I guess kind of twist, I guess you could say, that I'm doing with the male plant is that there'd be like cannabinoid traces or terpene traces, based off of the hemp plant itself that are in there. So even it makes it even better to feed it to my crop that's growing for cannabinoids and terpenes, because now we're using them to actually grow more of them and stuff. It's a whole process. There's a word for it where you're using the plant to grow the plant, but that's how we kind of do stuff. So if you're going to use that type of sunflower pollen, extract to grow more sunflowers, I bet the ones using that extract are going to grow a lot more better and a lot faster. Definitely. So that'd be a good study there for sure.
Yeah, and plus you can't forget it's going to have carbohydrates and hormones and metabolites. It's going to have everything something needs to produce seeds. So think of like a baby, getting a woman pregnant, right? That you're growing another being. So pollen is got to be superfood for any plant that you're especially if it's from the same plant. But I gotta believe that even if it's not from the same plant, it's still gonna have value. Now, I don't know if there's a limit to that. There may be, but I wouldn't see why anything else, like if the pollen gets in the soil, the bacteria attack it. Well, the worms will come because there's more bacteria. So I think nature knows what the F it's doing, and therefore the abundance of pollen you see at certain times of the year that affect us with allergies is for a reason. Like there's always a reason in nature. Sometimes she gets out of whack, but that's only to correct herself. So again, I think pollen is a wonderful addition. I think seeds are a wonderful addition if you're cracking them up and throwing them in your ferments. So just get creative, man. But that fermentation process really helps to break it down so that it's biologically available.
And remember, guys, you can go and buy bee pollen in the store, and it's energy for us as well, because they do collect bee pollen from the bees that are returning from the hives, and you can literally buy it, eat it, and it's a huge boost in energy for us as well. And in the hive, it is created into the most nutritious food in the hive, and it's the pollen that is converted into that honey, as well as what's called royal jelly, which is exactly what the queens eat, and that's what makes the queen the queen. It's fantastic. And if you can put that back in your soil, the way that Adam is doing it, oh my gosh, you're going to be feeding so much energy there for the soil biology, converting that into your plants. It's an amazing result, Adam. I'm so happy that you're doing that type of a thing.
Thank you. Yes, I'm glad to be doing it. Really, it is, and I'm glad you guys understand it too. It's good to have people that are like-minded that actually are getting it. And I'm like, yeah, that's my thoughts exactly. So
well, we need more of you, Adam.
I want to meet more of me. I need more of me.
We need clones to do half the work, right?
Yes, exactly.
So back to the thing in the schools, Lily was wondering if you could use like the egg cartons, the paper from that, which is the cardboard in the bottom. Would that something like that work? Or
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's just like a paper mesh. It's the same thing. It's just like any sort of paper in general. That way, I guess you would have to kind of she talk about, because it's like like the way it's shaped and then putting it fully like that, so then you could stack on top of it, or just the type of material. It's more
the texture.
Texture, right? Okay.
Yeah, because that would soak up liquid
so
much better than, say, paper.
Yeah.
Cardboard will soak it up great, but that kind of cardboard is like so fibrous that you'd have to figure out a way to probably chop it up, like with a machete or something, so that you can get a lot of it in there.
That's another experiment I wanted to do, is try to run some of the cardboard for like recycling, because from all these Amazon orders and stuff, trying to put it through like a chipper and seeing if I could break it up, after taking off all the plastics and stuff and all that, and being able to add that to it. Yeah, I think you definitely could. My whole point wasn't really to make it absorb, but rather filter. So then it will just keep behind the larger pieces of food scraps on the top, and then it filters through. And when it comes through, it goes into the chamber that you could kind of collect at the bottom, and then you could tap that chamber and then have that Bokashi tea come out. And that's what I was talking about, kind of giving away. So then the Bokashi tea itself wouldn't have like chunks of food in it. It would just be more of a cleaner kind of already filtered through the paper process that way. So you could use egg cartons for that, but I think exactly what we're talking about, it would absorb more, and then it'll kind of grab onto that, which then after we start composting it and we throw it over to like the source of carbon and put it into that Jiangsu layer, then you could be putting that too, and it'd be a part of the recycling of those egg cartons. But I save my egg cartons for my chickens and stuff too, so I can put the eggs in there. And then I'm going to be also probably, selling those in the farmer's market as well that way. So there's other things that I like to do with my egg cartons when I use them, but you can definitely do it. Yeah, anything paper that's porous and stuff you could use for sure.
So Adam, I have the answer for you. It's called the sand filter.
Okay.
So it's just stack that sand all the way up to the height of the wheel wells.
Okay.
And that'll keep all the compost or solids on the top. Only the liquids will travel through the sand.
Nice. I have a really good stuff too, like zeolite, which is kind of like a sand and stuff too, and it has a high cation process inside of it too and stuff, and it kind of works the way biochar does, but it's even more smaller of holes, so they can even like trap like smell and stuff like that too inside of them. But
it's zeolite's used in water purification.
There you go.
So I don't know, it might purify it too much. But
yeah, maybe, huh?
It's worthy of experiment. Fill one barrel with a zeolite, fill the other barrel with sand, and take samples and send them off to biomakers and see what the hell happened.
Yeah, and then fill the other one with some hemp char and stuff, and then see what's up on that too. And then it's already, even that hemp char on the bottom will already be activated that way too and stuff. So you do it that way too. Yeah, that would be actually good. I would just have to make sure that I put like some sort of board or something like that to be able to keep it separate, so we still have a chamber there to be able to grab that Hemkashi tea, so that stays separate and you can still tap that. Because if it's all folded up with that sand, I don't know if it's going to be able to go through there without clogging it up or something like that.
Oh, it will. No, I use this on a waterfowl. So you know what waterfowl are, right? They follow the water, right? They're birds that they just, when you put them in clean water, that water turns nasty very, very quickly. There was this, I forget what they call it. Well, it's a conservative, but it's different for waterfowl. But this guy had birds all over the world. Some that only had like 3 breeding pairs left in the world, like really high end stuff. And he was discharging all his water into a local river. And then worse yet, his well almost ran dry in one summer. And so he was freaking out about how can I conserve the water? So what we did was we pumped the water, the dirty water, out of each pen had its own pool, because he had to, because they're waterfowl. So they live mostly in the water and they come out, for periods of time. So we pumped the water out of their little pools through a sand filter, and it was clear, and we put it right back in. So I know it will work. Guaranteed. And another experiment for you to do to prove this to yourself is take a bucket, fill it with the sand. All right. Before you drill a hole, add water. Count how many gallons of water you can actually store in that sand. It'll blow your mind. And then if you really want to trip out, take the bucket, flip it upside down, make a sand castle. Make sure it's on a piece of plastic. And pitch it all one direction so you can recapture the water. Look how long it takes that sandcastle to collapse. It's nuts. It's an amazing kind of phenomenon that happens. So I wanted to tell you about that. And then second of all, I tried chipping cardboard. You got to have like a chipper shredder, because if you try to chop it like in a regular like big chipper shredder, it just goes airborne. It's
Okay.
a nightmare. So it's like
Cool.
you got to have like a slow feed that slowly grinds it up.
Yeah, that's what I got. I got a chipper shredder and stuff. I use that pretty religiously around here, especially when it starts getting towards like after harvest season and stuff like that with the hemp plants and stuff. I'll probably chip those down and stuff. I also did like different series of sifting, trying to get the bass fiber separated from the herds and all that stuff after chipping it down and stuff. I successfully have done it, but it's a lot of work, And
Yeah,
so,
dude, I got just dusted, man. Like bad.
Yeah.
And then I tried using water, like water soaking it, and then it just clotted up the machine. So I was like, yeah, this doesn't work.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
if your shredder goes slow enough and it doesn't just atomize it, then it would work for sure.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Kind of like rolling it up, kind of like the way it would be like a branch, and then kind of start feeding it through the chipper spot, and kind of just slowly kind of going it, and then see what kind of like result we get at the end and stuff. So
yeah, that's a great idea. I hadn't thought about rolling it up.
Yeah, to like a tree branch.
I think, Adam, what you're looking for is a zone in the bottom of that's totally free of everything, where the liquid can just sit like in a normal Bokashi bucket.
Yes.
I don't think the sand would actually work that way unless you're just at the end of the cycle taking the sand out and trying to let it drain out. You need a total exclusion zone that you're creating, and for that, that's something. Yeah, I'm not sure how you're going to do that.
Ken, he wants to add a petcock and collect the liquid.
Yes, he's going to be collecting the liquid, but if at the bottom of the bucket is filled with sand,
think
holding the liquid.
Think E-Horizon.
Yeah, but if it can you draw the water off of an E-Horizon, by just opening a petcock? Only if there's enough moisture there, though, right?
It's going to fill up with liquid.
Yeah,
I think I'll probably try like a 5-gallon version with it, and then put some sand like that, and then see what it was. One with the catcher, like with a space in there, and then the other one just with sand and filling up with the tap on it, and then we'll see if it comes out or not or whatever. But to my experiments, I see it in my head as it like clogging up the spout and stuff, and not really getting the water coming out. But I that could be wrong, man. Like, and the way you're explaining it to where like it makes sense. Why wouldn't it go through there? Without the strap.
Again, the petcock has to be big enough to let a little bit of the sand out with it. Okay. But eventually the sand will stop coming out because it'll have formed a sandcastle inside.
Cool.
Okay. Yeah. Adam, another experiment that we're going to be looking for an update on the next time we have you on.
Yes. Yes. I got to get to work.
Yeah, you got a laundry list, bro.
Yeah. I do. Definitely. So I'm excited to do it, though. I love all this, so it's good.
All right, we got 4 questions left, so we better punch through them because we're running out of time.
Now, this is, I think, is more related to the testing that you were talking about, Leighton.
Wouldn't
that type of DNA?
No. So what they've done is they've taken it and made it human readable in a format that's super informative. So this isn't like long read where you got to run it through a pipeline to reassemble the information in a way that a human can read it. They do this specifically for farmers and for product developers so that they can get the information that they need without having another scientist and another outfit along the way to take their converted information, convert it again, and then give it to you. So biomakers, I can't say enough about. I would caution you on this. If you're developing a product, they charge more for that, but that's a necessary evil because they're trying to get more farmers to use their product and their system to help the farmers, because the farmers aren't making money. Where people who are developing products, bugs in a jug, they need the information too, but they've got capital behind them. So if you're telling them, oh, I'm developing a product, it's going to be 600. If you tell them this is a soil sample and this is the plant, then it's only 200. So just keep that in mind. But yes, the information they send you, it's going to take you a few minutes. They give you a sheet to help you interpret it. But even after reading the interpretation sheet, you're going to have to put some mental acuity into it, or some time really thinking about it, because the understanding of the relationship of what's going on is the important part. In other words, the bacteria are creating these enzymes.
Mm-hmm.
They're creating the plant available calcium that's mobile. They're creating gerbilic acid that helps the plant function in different ways. They're creating these fungicides that prevent pathogenic fungi from taking hold. So it's kind of like reverse thinking. You'll understand if you do the test. And Adam, if you get your test results back, you're like, I can't figure this shit out, hit me up on Kingdom Aquaponics, and we'll set up a call and I'll walk you through it.
Perfect. Sounds good, man.
Actually, yeah, hit him up and have him book a show so we can go over it on a show to help everybody learn.
Yes.
I'll reach out to Tanel right now so I don't forget.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so the next one is I need to get some seeds, and she's talking about hemp seeds. Adam, where's a good place for people to get hemp seed from? In the States, and I think that hemp can be shipped anywhere in the world nowadays.
Yeah, I just put it like on a label like bird seed or something like that. But if you wanted to try my seed, I have a farm exclusive seed that I've been growing since 2018. That's very well adapted to our environment here. I mean, you'll probably have to hit me up privately. We can work out the details that way. But yeah, hit me up social media and stuff, and that way. But there is seed companies and stuff. It just depends on what you're going for, and what kind of hemp you want to grow. Are you looking to try to grow the big tall type of stuff? Are you looking for CBD seeds? Are you looking for feminized seeds? It's a matter of what you really want. I fortunately haven't had to buy seeds since 2018, and I bought those locally from people that I just gave the dude so much money to purchase a certain amount of seeds off of his order that he was purchasing for even more seeds that way in order to get it. And then I slowly genetically adapted that one and then kind of made my own strain off of it based off of things that I liked and all that stuff. And then it became my own thing. So it's called Igwe. So, cool, but cool. Yeah, it's a pretty cool name. But anyway, so if you want to, you can hit me up, and like we could talk and see what we could do about getting you some out there. That'd be cool. I'm totally down with sharing those. I have plenty of them. So, but anyone wants to do experiments that way. But there is places or people that actually excel them and have like the feminized ones and all that stuff too. But we're just kind of more just natural, dioecious type of seeds and just keeping it that way. So,
Leighton.
Yeah, I was going to say, keep in mind that if you're in a radically different environment than he is, you're going to need to let those seeds probably go 7 generations before you can use them. Yeah. Because it's going to need to adapt to your environment. So that means 7 years. It's a big commitment.
Mm-hmm. And that's for any type of seed, whether it's a tomato seed, a hemp seed, or any other type of seed. It has to adjust to your local environment to really start producing, and that does take time.
Yeah.
Just like what happened to your tomato plants.
Yes.
They were not.
Yeah. So they're not producing at all. The only one that is the one that I saved from 2023. It's only been a couple of years, so it's still not even fully adapted or anything. But it's one that's been adapted enough to where it's actually producing some. Every once in a while.
So this is a question for you, Leighton. What's the best testing kit? Anyone know how I should test?
All right, that's a broad question. I typically approach it this way. You're a new client. I'm going to do soil chemistry, which basically shows me the overall pool of nutrients that you have, generally. Saturated paste, which is going to tell me what nutrients are available or mobile in your system. And lastly, texture. What is the relationship between sand, silt, clay, and organic matter? And I won't go into why I do all these things, but understand that it's information that you can use to help you really move things along quickly. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do the DNA testing so I could see what your microbial community looks like on an overall picture. And then depending on what you're trying to do, I would probably do like some kind of percolation or infiltration test. That's something that I can teach you how to do remotely, where I can also teach you how to send those soil samples out to the different vendors to get me the information to make an intelligent decision. And the other thing too is I typically do, if it's remote, is I'll FaceTime you so I can see what you're working with. What does the topography look like? How many different variations of species? And we call these ecotones. So when you start to see grasses dying down and moving into trees, there's an ecotone, right? That's a division between one group of plants and another group of plants, and usually a successionally different microbiome. There's going to be more fungi under the trees, where there's going to be more bacteria in the grasses, or a one-to-one relationship in the grasses. So all this stuff is important in really understanding it. And then a direct microscopy too. I mean, being able to look at what's there in relationship, because remember, the DNA is only doing bacteria and fungi. They're not doing protists. So if you have nematodes or protozoa or a decent nutrient cycling system, you're not going to be able to tell that without the direct microscopy piece of it. And so typically, if I'll do that on my own, I do qualitative. If I have a client and I want third-party verification, I send it down to rhizos.science in Texas. Love Andy Marsh, the work she's doing. I've talked to other soil food web graduates who, they're doing their best, but they just haven't really gotten passionate about it. And you need to be passionate about that because it's a really important piece of the puzzle. So those are my three main tests, plus the site tests. Hope I answered the question.
Yep. So we got one last one that's going back to the Biomaker's DNA testing of Bokashi leachate. Will they give results for all of bacteria and keep going strong, Adam?
Thank you, Maurice. I appreciate you, man. I'm watching you, man. You're awesome, dude.
So the answer is yes. They can give you the list of all this bacteria, or typically you have to ask for that, but they'll give it to you for free. But they usually just give you a report on the broad strokes, the important communities, not the individual background species, because typically in nature it's more of the bolder colors, not necessarily the white or black background that's important. So hopefully I answered that question as well. But I'm telling you, I'm falling in love. I've done 4 projects now with them as one of the key pieces of information, and the ability to make intelligently informed decisions for me to really move the project along in a beneficial and positive way is night and day from what I was doing before I had that access to that test.
Nice.
Cool. So, guys, we only got a couple of minutes left, so we'll end it here. I know, Adam, you've got a soccer practice or baseball or something you've got to run to.
Yeah, I got. I'm a soccer coach now, so my son wanted to do soccer, and then I signed up to. Yeah, man. For AYSO out here, so I'm trying to just be involved with my kids as much as possible in that way. They wanted to do soccer, so last time they did it with my daughter, and then now I'm doing it with my son. So they wanted me to be a coach for some reason. I guess we don't have enough helpers hands around here, so I'm like, I guess so. I mean, I haven't really done much soccer or anything like that myself, but I'm learning the game, man. And I'm a natural born leader, so I can figure it out pretty easy.
Cool.
I hope we didn't keep you from doing it.
No. We don't. I think about an hour or so, but I still got to go take care, make sure the house is all sturdy and dinner's all cooked and all that stuff before we go.
Yep.
So.
Well, listen, again, I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah.
2 hours of your time when you're running a business, have a farm, family and kids, newborn. I mean, that's a lot to ask. So thank you very much for coming on and sharing with the audience. And as you could tell, you got a lot of nice comments in the comment section as well as some really good questions. So, and again, keep up the good work, dude. You're a pioneer, man.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys. It's my pleasure to be on the show. I want to do as much as possible and everything like that. So yeah, I believe the work I'm doing is important to share. So got to be out here doing that.
And
Well,
Ken,
yeah,
as always, thank you so much for all the work that you do behind the scenes to make this happen every week.
Yes.
Thank you. And Adam, it's not just doing the work, it's sharing the work. That's why I love Leighton so much, because he's always here sharing this information that he's learned over decades of doing this stuff. And as for Serena, I did see some questions, but we're basically ran out of time. For anybody that put up questions that we didn't get to, I'm apologize for not being able to get to all of them. Got to come on earlier and get your questions in earlier so that we can have a chance to go over them. Guys, Wednesday, Andy and I are talking about making the organic transition, which is another one of the chapters. I think it's chapter 6 or something of his book. Don't Panic, It's Organic. So you're going to want to check that out on Wednesday, guys. And we've got Gardner Scott coming back next Monday to give us an update on what's been going on, and maybe we'll talk about his new book, or his book on raised garden beds. So, guys, thank you so much for coming, and you'll like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends. It helps the channel out. And guys, love you all. We'll talk to you soon.
Peace out, gang.